Hi, welcome to our channel. I'm Jackie Hurtis and I'm a residential mortgage lender.
I'm Shannon. I'm a real estate agent and investor.
And I'm Sasha, Qualkenbush, a real estate attorney.
And we're
the Property Queens.
Today we are going to be talking all about writing up a lease. So Sasha, take it away for us.
Okay. So once again, I have my notebook. More like a book, less like a notebook. Okay, so when you are writing a lease, there are some terms that we're going to go over that are the most important. There's some other ones that are just legalese, which attorneys like to put in there, but you can find pretty good ones on the internet, templates. Just make sure to look at what state it's for, because some vary obviously by the state laws. So just make sure it applies for your state before using it. So the first one that I would really make sure that you have is the term of the lease. And you can either do like 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, however long you choose to do it. But please make sure that there is a term, because you don't want it to end up being a month-to-month lease. That would just not work out. Our video got cut off, so I think we're starting at renewal. So make sure to write in the lease the terms of renewal. So if I am staying in the unit, let's say I want to continue living there, does it turn into month to month, or does it renew automatically, or do we have to re-sign a lease? So make sure to address that. Next would be the rent amount and when it's due. Just make sure to clearly state if it's due on the 1st and it's late on the 2nd, or if you're going to give them a 5-day grace period, which is common. So you can say after the 5th on the 6th, you will be charged a late fee, or a percentage of the rent can be a late fee. So you can do a $35 late fee, or however much, whatever percentage you want to choose for a late fee. Next would be who pays utilities. Is there anything included with the term of the lease? Are they going to get garbage pickup for free? Is any cable, internet, any additional add-ons that you want to say that you're paying for or not paying for? Just make sure you clearly state if you are or not. Next would be eviction. How many days after a late payment can you evict them? So if they're 20 days late on their rent, you want to clearly state, I will evict you, and don't leave any wiggle room. Make sure in the agreement that you clearly state everything that you want, because if there's even a gray area, they can stay and they can argue and fight it, and it is just going to end up being so much more of a headache than having a little bit longer of a lease agreement. Another item is who's going to maintain the premise. So does the tenant have to mow the lawn, or do you have to mow the lawn? Again, clearly state all the terms. If you don't want to have anything to do with the property, you're not going to provide them any utilities, you're not going to provide them any maintenance to the property, clearly state that, because then that is more of a net zero lease. And triple net is what we call it in the commercial world. That's a great lease. You don't have any expenses. You continue making money off of the property. Also, for interruption or destruction of the property, let's say the house burns down, you want to say that the tenant pays up until the date of destruction, or if there's some sort of interruption in their utility service, or interruption because of, let's say, flooding. I don't even know if you don't want to pay for that interrupted, let's say it's 2 weeks, make sure to state that I'm not going to be paying for it. The tenant will be continuing all those costs and continuing to pay rent. If there's a holdover, so I believe we were talking about this in another video, or maybe we alluded to it. If a tenant ends up staying in the unit and you're not getting paid rent, you want to say, for example, the rent is $2,500. If the tenant does not leave for that month, they're going to pay double the rent. So $5,000 is a huge deterrence for people. And if, like in the last video, if you're already charging them 2.5% of you're charging them rent of what would be 2.5% of their income.
2.5
Of their rental amount.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's a mouthful.
It's a very small.
But you're going to charge them double the amount, and $5,000 is a huge deterrent to them having to pay, and they're going to want to leave the property. So if they don't leave the property, they're going to have to pay that, and you can also file a claim in general sessions and recoup that money if they don't end up paying you for that month or however long their stay is. Injury or damage. This is another section that's going to cover you as a landlord. It's basically an indemnity section. I don't know if you guys know what that means, but essentially I'm going to indemnify my landlord. I always use Shannon as my example. If Shannon's my landlord, I as the tenant am going to indemnify her, and I'm going to hold her harmless from whatever occurs on my property. So if I invite someone to a party and they get injured on my property and they sue me or sue Shannon, I'm going to indemnify her by covering her legal expenses, or if anything, if she does end up getting actually a judgment against her, I'm going to essentially pay for that judgment. It's kind of hard to explain, but make sure that in your lease agreement you state that the tenant is going to indemnify you, and they're going to be the ones that are liable for any damage, injury, death. That's very depressing.
Moving on.
You also want to cover assignment or subleasing. So if you don't want whoever you have in the property, you don't want them to sublease to someone because you aren't in control of that, make sure to state it. Say it. You won't be allowed to sublease. You won't be allowed to assign your responsibilities to anybody. If you do allow it, you can also put terms in there that say tenant may sublease as long as by written approval by the landlord. That would be an okay clause to put in there. And then that way you have some control over who is in your property. And the last one would be pets. Just make sure to put in there that this property is not allowed to have pets. You're not allowed like anything. You can have fish or list whatever pets they will be allowed to have. If it's a dog or cat, you can charge them a security deposit, a pet rental fee if you want to per month. But again, clearly state it. And then to piggyback off of another video that we had, if you have a pet security deposit or actual security deposits from the tenant, please do not commingle those funds with your other money. And in your lease agreement, you should state if you do have a separate account for that, landlord will deposit these funds into a tenant security deposit account, something like that. And then you can put their money into a separate account. Or if they're going to give you a money order or certificate, then you can just put it in their file if you want to, because that's basically cash. Just as long as you don't put it in your actual account. So,
all right. Well, thank you for tuning in this Tuesday. If you have any questions on anything we have gone over in this video, feel free to reach out. Our contact info is below. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.